running, especially down here, there's such a large community. There's at least a dozen or more clubs that are running. But I see people out on the road, and it's a waving of the hand, it's a hello, it's how are you. That part of running, I never really realized till I started doing it that yes, I like it for how it makes me feel, but getting to know people and having a chance to talk to them before a race, after a race.
Hello and welcome into Running for Coverage, our fifth episode. For those of you who have been waiting for this one, we had a little bit of a delay because of some travel and some technical issues, but it was worth it, and I'll tell you a little bit about that here in just a bit. I want to let you know what we have coming up here on the show. We're going to look back at the Run for the Pies, the final Grand Prix race of the spring season. That's coming up in just a bit. Later on, we're going to hear from the guy you just heard a bit from, and that is David Farraday, a 66-year-old runner. Great story. Guy who didn't really start running until he was 50 years old and has become one of the best runners in his age group in our area. Has some really good perspective, I think, on the running community in Jacksonville. We also have a training tip from Keith Brantly, the 1996 U.S. Olympic marathoner, and we'll have a gear review, as we do each and every show, from a local runner. Beth Billiard tells us what she won't run without. Before we get into last week's performances and the last couple of weekends, actually, I do want to tell you just a little bit about my experience on the road. I spent some time up in Asheville, which is, as you know, that Asheville area, Cashiers, Highlands, a Brevard, very popular getaway for folks in Jacksonville. A lot of folks familiar with that area. I was up there with my brothers, both of whom are runners. My youngest brother is a marathoner. He's training for an ultra right now. So one of the things we did is we popped into a running store there in Asheville called Just Running, J-U-S apostrophe, like, yeah, just running. And really a neat little store in a house that's over 100 years old. It's just kind of a neighborhood running store, and really enjoyed it. They had a great selection on the wall, and we're going to put a link to the video in the newsletter. I took a video of these old running shoes. Super impressive. I mean, really interesting to see the development of running shoes from like going back to the 40s. It's almost like a museum area there. That was cool, and really enjoyed talking with the staff there. So shout out to the folks at Just Running if they're listening in. And if you're in the Asheville area, that'd be a great place to pop in and check out. They also have some running groups, both I guess a little more competitive group that runs from there and a more social group. You know which one I would be choosing. So that was our experience up there in Asheville. Really cool to see that. But because I was traveling, I wasn't able to get the podcast updated on time. So this one we'll look back at the last 2 weekends, and there's been a lot of running events in Jacksonville to kind of keep an eye on. So if we go all the way back to the last couple of weekends, the Pink Ribbon Symposium Butterfly 5K had 218 runners, with Jacob Hess winning the men's with 18:57 as his time. Heather Thompson, who won the previous week for the women, won as well. Actually 60 seconds faster than her win from the previous week. So congrats, Heather, on the not only the first place, but also cutting 60 seconds off your time. The JTC running track meet at Bowles was held as well for a lot of young runners, but also some not so young, and we have put a link to that on the newsletter, so be sure you sign up for the newsletter to get that. And a part of Global Running Day, First Place Sports held a 5K. Don't know, I didn't see any timings on that, but a lot of folks on that Wednesday enjoying Global Running Day. And then this past weekend, the Run for the Pies, the final Grand Prix race of the spring season, saw Mac Franks edge Jonathan Besselink in the elite men's division, 15:07 to 15:10, the gap there. Jennifer Lima at 17:17, the first woman across the line, ahead of Kelsey Pontius, who was 12 seconds back. In the open division, Matthew Stevens won at 17:35. 4 seconds faster than 14-year-old Jack Strombeck, who I believe runs for Oakleaf in high school, but that is an impressive time at 14 to be running 17:39. And that was 2 seconds faster than our friend Oliver Ernest, who has appeared here on the podcast at 17:41. On the women's open division, Rose Backus at 18:44 was the winner. Lindy White was the second fastest female in the open division, 17 years old. She runs for the Ponte Vedra High School. She won the Katie Caples in September, her time 19:57 over the weekend at the Run for the Pie. So that does it for the season in terms of the Grand Prix. And in our newsletter, we'll be detailing how the Grand Prix results came out for the course of the season. Looking ahead, this coming Saturday, the Chemo Noir 1 mile and wine tasting event at Casa Marina in Jacks Beach. And then a week from Friday, it's the SUP Bridge the Gap 5K, the new, can't remember what SUP stands for, a supplemental use, shared use path, I think. It's the thing, the walking path and running path that goes over the Fuller Warren Bridge. And that will take place. There's a 5K and a 1 mile plan for that a week from Friday. So that's a look back and a look ahead. And we will also now be looking ahead to talking to David Farraday, a guy who, not David Farraday, the golf announcer, David Farraday, the Jacksonville runner, who has really built himself a tremendous reputation despite not being a runner at a younger age. That's coming up right after this. When I first met Dave Farraday, I was the public address announcer for Jacksonville University basketball. This was back in the 90s. At that time, I did not know what kind of a runner he was, and didn't really realize that till I got into running in my late 30s and started looking at the results from races all around town. And I kept saying his name, pretty high up there. And the older he got, the faster he seemed to get. And he joins us here on Running for Coverage. Dave, first of all, thank you for coming on. When did you start running? When did running become a big part of your life?
Well, let me say it's great to have a conversation with you this morning. I know we always used to say hello in the office and joke around a little bit, but it's really nice to have an opportunity to just talk to you. So I appreciate that. I started running 16 years ago. One of those crazy situations where I put on a pair of sneakers, pulled on a shirt, shorts, went outside and ran and said, this isn't too bad. I think I will run tomorrow. And then I ran the next day, and it just evolved from there.
There are a lot of different things to get people motivated to run. Sometimes they're competitive and they're in high school and they want to run on the cross country team or the track team. Sometimes they have a change in their life, or they have some medical situation that means they need to get more active. Was there anything that prompted that, or was it just you happened to go out one time at the age of 50 or something and just went out and ran?
Well, I think I can check all of the boxes. I think I did it as for exercise, fitness, a chance to be by myself, a chance to compete. I've always enjoyed sports, played soccer in high school and college, and ran a little bit just to stay in shape. But once I started running here, I realized I enjoy this. I love the people that I have met through running. And the competitive part of it interested me. And so I just kept on running and trying to do the things that would make me stay competitive as the years tacked on to my age.
Well, it is impressive. And we can share your age because it's on every result sheet. But the age of 66, you might be I don't know about where the times are. I haven't tracked your times everywhere, but your times are still excellent. And it seems like in terms of compared to your peers, you just keep getting better and better. So how's that happened?
Well, I think there are other people in my age group. Specifically, there's a gentleman out of St. Augustine who participates in the majority of races up here, who's faster than me, and he gives me an incentive to do those things: training, nutrition, overall fitness, to try and get better. It doesn't always work. My times will fluctuate depending on the weather and the type of course, and bottom line, just sort of how I feel. But I think if you do the things that keep you motivated and keep you healthy, that's a huge factor, as I think all runners will say. You can make those incremental improvements that keep you going.
Yeah, to have somebody who you're trying to track down, whether that is the thought of somebody who always tends to beat you or is one step up on the podium or whatever, or if it's in the moment and you see, hey, there's that guy, I'm going to try to catch him in these last 500 meters. In my case, it's usually, a mom pushing a stroller who I'm trying to catch. But, that's there is something pretty amazing about having either an ongoing or an immediate goal that can change the way you approach your runs.
I think I try and enter every race with uh, three goals, sort of a top goal, which is probably out of my reach, but I will keep it as a goal. Then a goal that I figure I should be able to achieve, and obviously the third goal would be something that simple, like complete the race, don't get hurt, don't do something stupid. So I keep those in mind, but every race is an adventure. That's what I call it. I get out there and sometimes it's exactly how I planned it to be. It's how I wanted it to be. And sometimes it's making an adjustment either right out of the corral or in the first mile or midway through, or like you said, that last sprint at the end when I want to try and catch somebody or I just want to improve my time. So all those factors come into play.
The things you're saying really go back to a thought that I have had about running for quite a while, which is that it is such an analogy for life in so many ways. You get out of it what you put into it. You have to make adjustments along the way. You need to have goals, but adapt your goals, stay motivated, all these things. I wonder if there are some other life lessons that you think you found through running that maybe you wouldn't have recognized had you not really started running 16 years ago.
Well, I think the number one factor for me with running is the community of runners. When I played sports before, whether it was in high school or college, it was just a very competitive. It was you versus them. There might have been a handshake at the end or acknowledging a very good play by a specific player, but that was it. Running, especially down here, there's such a large community. There's at least a dozen or more clubs that are running. But I see people out on the road and it's a waving of the hand, it's a hello, it's how are you? That part of running, I never really realized till I started doing it that yes, I like it for how it makes me feel, but getting to know people and having a chance to talk to them before a race, after a race. I know I'm crazy, but one of the happiest places for me is in a corral before a race starts. I feel at home. I enjoy the company, the buzz, the energy that's going on. And invariably, there'll be someone that either recognizes me or I haven't seen in a while. And there's that brief conversation. So there's that human contact that I think supersedes all of the other, your competitiveness or that that you're hurting a little bit. It just, it makes it all worthwhile. And that I really enjoy.
I mean, ultimately, you can run against everybody in the field, but really, you're competing against yourself every time you step into that corral and get ready to go, which again, as you mentioned, in stick and ball sports, not necessarily the case, and even for track in some regards, if you're a high school or college track athlete, it's not always necessarily that way. You're looking for a performance or a position. And I agree with you. What I've found in the running community in Jacksonville, one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast is because it is such a big community and it is so supportive. That they're like at the Gate River Run, of course, I've had the chance to broadcast that event for the last 5 years, and to see what that looks like at the start line, and even more so at the finish line, to see when people have accomplished something that for some of them they maybe never thought they would, or it was something they've been building toward and training for, or others who are much more competitive, getting the hat, whatever it is. It is such a supportive, lift everybody up kind of community. I'm not sure that's the case in every running community, but I think it is for the most part with runners, because there's that sense of shared agony that, hey, we've all gone out there, and whatever pace we're going at, we're trying hard and we're pushing ourselves.
Well, I think you just said it best. There is a connection among runners that you can immediately understand, you can talk about, you can share experiences. You don't have to know the person's name, you don't have to know where they're from, but you can connect on, how's your running? What's your next race? If there's a conversation about recovering from an injury, or your gear, what shoes are you wearing, why, there's an immediacy of information that can be easily shared among runners, and a lot of times that carries on. Just very briefly, a gentleman that I rode a school bus with in Boston to the start line of the 2019 Boston Marathon, he's down here this year for the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl game. I get a phone call. Hey, how about going for a run? So, having not seen him, talked to him for 4 years, he remembered my name. We'd exchanged phone numbers. I get a call from this guy. To me, that's the running community, and we are very lucky in this town. You said it, with First Place Sports and the 5 running stores and JTC Running and PRS, and then a multitude of groups that all run together and share experiences. It's really amazing.
I don't know if I would have appreciated as much as I do if I had been a runner in high school. I had a lot of friends who ran track in high school and college, and so I was aware of it. And always a fan of track and field, the Olympics and the World Championships and so forth. But I never, it wasn't a big part of my active life. It was more of a spectator life. And maybe that wouldn't have been the same way. But you kind of just gave the promo for this podcast with all the things that we can talk about. Those are the things I love to talk about on this podcast, whether it's training or recovery and nutrition, and the races that are going on. What's the next race, and who did what? It really is. And I think about you talk about Boston Marathon, and we talked to Oliver Ernest a couple of episodes ago, who has run every major marathon in the last 17 months, all 6 of the world's major marathons. Unbelievable that he and his wife have been able to do that. And you could talk to a guy like that, or you could talk to a mid-packer, and it's sort of the same conversation. Like if I'm talking to Rory McIlroy about golf, or I'm talking to a 13 handicapper, totally different conversation. But with running, and obviously there's some things that the elite runners contend with and deal with, and how they train that's a little bit different. But for the most part, you can have that conversation with anybody who has been out there and who has pushed himself to try to run.
And I think that's what makes it more than a sport. It's something that you can all find in your experience, a piece that is relatable to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. And like you said, when you get in that corral, especially the Gate River Run, which I absolutely love that event, everything around it, it's running at its best here in Jacksonville. It's as close as we come to, and it is a major event. It's the 15K National Championship. You can be at the back of that corral or at the front, and you'll be able to strike up a conversation with somebody about some part of their running, and come away feeling so good about it. And that's what I really like.
One of the things that comes up when we talk about going out on a run, and you kind of mentioned it, you may have to make an adjustment early on. When do you know that you either you have it or you don't have it going out for a run?
That's a really good question, because with me, it's not right away. It's something that evolves during the run. I will start out with how I think I want to run the event, and it may take a mile. It may take longer than that, like in a half marathon. It may take the first 5K to realize I don't feel the way that I wanted to feel, or my legs feel sluggish. Um, or midway through the race, when I'm thinking maybe this is the chance to increase my pace, I may wait a little bit longer. It's hard for me to respond to how my body's responding right away. I should have to let it settle in a little bit, and that's why I like a longer race, a 10K, the 15K distance, which I really like, and the half marathon, which is my favorite, because it gives me a chance to sort of get comfortable with the race. And then I can respond better to how my body is feeling. The 5Ks, of which there's a ton of them here in town, and I run the majority of them, it all happens so quick. You either got to be going or you're not going to go the way you wanted it to.
Yeah, certainly you talk about the length of a race impacting tactics as you go
Mhm.
on. One thing that I think every runner experiences from one time or another is when their mind is telling them, "No, we gotta back off." When that part of your mind is telling you you got to back off, but there's something inside of you that says, "Shut up, brain." Uh, what do you do? Do you have some tricks, or do you have some things that you do to push through those times where something inside of you is saying, "Hey, it's too much," but that competitive side, or maybe the wizened part of you is saying, "Hey, we got more in the tank."
The mental versus physical uh, seesaw that goes on during a running event is very interesting, and everyone handles it differently. Uh, I will sometimes try and disassociate what my mind is saying so that my body will continue to respond. I have, um, in the latter stages of a marathon, actually slapped my legs. I've slapped myself in the face to say, "Come on, this is what you love to do. You need to keep going." Um, so the mental tricks are difficult, and I think a lot of people either silently or verbally will talk themselves through it. That's the amazing part of a marathon is at some point your body is going to say, "Hey, I think I can't push any further," and you mentally have to say, "Yes, you can." And what I've read is that a lot of times we can mentally go further than we thought we could, so that it shouldn't be something that you fear. It's something that we all experience, and you learn to. Some people with a mantra, I've heard them said verbally out on a course, to give them incentive to push them through whatever battle they're waging between their head and their body.
Yeah, I think I've read some of the same things that you have probably about pushing through, and that the we've evolved for our subconscious to protect the rest of the organism, to not have it go. So when you reach that, whether it's a danger zone, the first level danger zone or second level danger zone, um, if you're just first starting out running, you don't know how right or wrong that little voice is. So
Mhm.
running over time and running consistently, I think, makes a big difference there. I took a bit of time off running after my daughter was born, and through the pandemic and my job and everything else. I didn't prioritize it. And when I got back out there, I realized, boy, that voice is a lot louder now than it was when I was, running 15, 16 races a year and running 4 or 5 times a week. But you can never silence it. Emily Sisson told us a couple of years ago, coming up the Hart Bridge, she had to have some positive self-talk to get herself to the top of it as she was running, one of the fastest river runs that any woman has ever run. So it doesn't matter if you're an Olympic level athlete or whether you're a mid packer who is just trying to get to the finish. That is another one of those commonalities that everybody in running experiences.
And a lot of times it's experimentation that will help that process. I mean, I remember the first race I ran, it was the July 4th 5K, and I was scared. I really didn't know what to expect from myself or what the whole race scene was going to be like. Was I going to be able to hold my own mid pack, back of the pack? Was I going to stop? And after I survived that race, I said, okay, I learned some things about myself and I want to do it again. And in that case, it was, I want to push myself more and see where that point is where I can't push myself any further based on my training and fitness level at that time. So, yes, it is something that I think every runner confronts, every runner handles it in the best way that they can. And it's part of the adventure. It makes the run or the race that much more interesting, at least for me.
I'm going to fire off some lightning round questions here. So short answers, answer and a little description. Let's start with what is your favorite race to run in Jacksonville?
The Gate River Run.
And what you would consider your greatest running accomplishment?
Running the Boston Marathon.
What was that experience like the first time you ran Boston?
Well, I've only run it one time. It was expectation from what people had told me, expectation for what I thought it would be like, and then it exceeded everything in every way, from the events before the race to the race itself to the feeling after the race. I have a picture of myself after the race kissing the medal that you give you, because I've never been that way before. I was so amazed at everything that was going on, all the runners and the celebration and what it meant to everyone to achieve and run that marathon. It was overwhelming.
Dave, thanks so much. Great to talk running with you. We look forward to talking with you down the line, and keep an eye out for them, folks. Pretty much any age group podium. If Dave Farraday isn't on that podium, there's something wrong with that age group.
Well, I appreciate those comments, and I'm thrilled for your podcast and all of your information that you're putting out to the community about running. That's awesome, and it makes us all feel really good. So kudos to you, and always good talking to you.
Be sure to sign up for the newsletter. You can do so via the link. I've pinned it to the top of my Twitter, @ColePepper. You can also find it on our Instagram at Running for Coverage. The newsletter gives you not only an opportunity to win something every month, but also a chance to help you keep in touch with what's going on around the Jacksonville running scene. That's a once-a-week email newsletter, and it's free. We do want to mention that we have drawn our winner for our first week. That was Sarah Brockner, who won that one, so congratulations. The next month's giveaway comes from our friends at Tucker Cycling in Jacksonville, and Holt Tucker has put together a gift pack, and we will be drawing that winner coming up from one of the subscribers to the newsletter. We'll win that at the end of the month. So for now, let's get to our gear review. Beth Billiard, local runner and teacher, tells us what she won't run without.
All right. So it's kind of weird. It's Lululemon shorts. And I know some people are like, okay, can you really run in like designer, like fancy shorts? I started about 5 years ago in them, and they're the high rise ones. They come in two different lengths. So, if you're worried about that length, and oh, by the way, they're specifically for women. You can get two different lengths on those. And I also recommend dark colors. As much as you like the fun light colors, dark colors are the way to go with your shorts.
Why dark colors?
Why dark colors? Well, I'll speak to the Florida runners specifically. Maybe you have some other people that listen as well, but the sweating and all that wonderfulness that happens down there, dark colors tend to hide it, and you can wear them a tad bit longer than those lighter colors.
How is the durability and how many, like, do you know how many miles or how many runs you tend to get out of those? How long do they last?
I bet you it's probably 2 years for each pair. And I'll tell you, Lulu, if there's a problem, you take them right back and they'll replace them. So that's always a great thing. And they're also lined, and they have a cool little pocket on the back to put your little goos or whatever you need to make it through your runs as well.
Who would these be best for? What kind of runners?
Honestly, all types of runners. I don't think there's anyone that can shy away from these shorts. They've worked for me for all different distance. I've done long distance, short distance, speed workouts. They're my go-to. That's all that's in my drawer right now. Nothing else.
All right, so you are a raving fan. How many pairs do you own?
I own 13 pairs. And of those 13 pairs, 10 are black. Plain black.
Good stuff from Beth there. And as well, each and every week we bring you a training tip. Could be a running tip, could be something about recovery or injury prevention, could be about nutrition. Today, we welcome back our friend, the 1996 U.S. Olympic marathoner Keith Brantly, with a training tip for us. And this one is a big one when you talk about trying to take it to the next level and kind of push past the barriers that we encounter. So, Keith, what are some tips for folks who want to try to overcome those barriers that they encounter in the course of a race? How do you push through?
Well, okay, so there's two ways your body says no. There's one very difficult one that we have to deal with from time to time. The first no I say is when your body says, "Hey, I've got a hamstring strain, or I've got some sort of problem in my foot." That's your body saying no. It's your saying, "I'm giving you a warning." That's it. That's where we won't cover that part of it, because it's that's gone beyond the scope of mentally dealing with that. The things that you can deal with mentally are those times during a race where I often say a running race, especially a marathon, is a roller coaster of emotions. Okay, our body is going to send us signals. It's going to send us, where I'm getting tired, I'm getting hungry. Especially in a marathon, you get that hollow feeling where you're running out of energy. That is temporary. And trust me, I know this because, I've my first marathon, I hit the wall at 13 miles, and I got 13 miles to go. I think the most important thing is to stay engaged. We stay engaged by either associating or disassociating. And what I mean by that is some people disassociate by thinking about something else, like doing math equations in their head, which I could never do. But they avoid dealing with the pain or the discomfort or the pace slowdown by thinking of something else. And that's what gets them through that point, because your body will respond. It will come back unless you're completely dehydrated and you're falling apart. And that's not mental. That is not mental. That's a physiological problem, right? But some people, in general, I look at my how I'm doing as kind of a cluster of gauges, basically, on a race car. And I'm looking at my tachometer, my speed, I'm looking at my water temperature and things like that. And I'm making sure that each one of those pieces are functioning well. And that distracts me in some ways. It gets me moving to where I'm getting out of that mental slump. The other way to do it is to make sure that you're focusing on other runners. Unless you're winning the race, you probably got somebody within your sights. And if you stay focused in on them, you're less likely to feel sorry for yourself. And I've often said it's so much better to be the hunter than the hunted in a running race, because you're actually seeing someone ahead of you and it's allowing you to stay focused in on them. And then if you're running by yourself, the thing I like to do sometimes, which, now I run by myself a lot because I can't stay up with anybody, but, I will pick a point ahead of me and I will focus in on that, like a stop sign or maybe a building ahead, and say, I just have to get myself to that building. If I can get myself to that building, I can get myself to the finish line. Part of this is just the mental trickery of telling your mind that, hey, listen, don't listen to your body right now. You're not injured. You're okay. You're just going through a mental slump. And that's how you stay focused.
Always great to have Keith here on the podcast. We'll have him on for a longer stretch of conversation coming up a little bit later on as the summer progresses. Want to thank Darren Ronan and the Ronan School of Music for writing, composing, and performing our original music for the podcast. Check out the Ronan School of Music if you or a child wants to learn an instrument. And also Darren does a great job out on live events as well. Thanks so much for your patience this week. We will get back on a somewhat normal schedule now moving forward. Fingers crossed. Thanks again. Be sure to subscribe. We are now on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon, on Spotify, and on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, like, and follow whatever it takes there to make sure you are getting up to date and getting the updates when the new podcast comes out. That really helps us as well in terms of spreading the word on this thing. So we appreciate you listening. Thanks so much. I'm Cole Pepper. So long. We'll talk to you next time on Running for Coke.